In our top story tonight, Finance Minister Chris Sinclair says job losses in the public sector cannot be avoided if government is to reduce its expenditure by an additional $143 million and protect the Barbados dollar. Minister Sinclair was speaking to the media as he updated the island on the country's latest economic position in a press conference at government headquarters. He also outlined a number of private sector-led projects expected to begin this year that will grow the economy. These include the construction of the waste-to-energy plant at Vaucluse, which is expected to bring more than $300 million into the economy, along with the construction of an alternative cement factory. There's also to be a review of 19 statutory corporations with a view to consolidating their operations.
We are looking, and we've said this, and the final report, of course this work is being conducted under the direction of the Director of Finance who's here, a report to look at 19 institutions. I just read that. And we expect, after consultation with the workers' representatives and the private sector as well, that that commencement of the implementation of those recommendations will start from April this year. It will mean that of those 19 institutions, some will go out of business, others will merge with each other, and perhaps where it is feasible and makes sense for private involvement in the operations of any of those institutions, that will be undertaken as well.
The minister says there was extensive consultation with the labor movement before the decision was taken to cut jobs across the public sector.
We're engaged in other matters, including a dispute with the Barbados Water Authority, but we subsequently did them before the statement was delivered, and we have met with them 3 times over the period. The process we have outlined, and we said when it would start and how it would go about, is government policy. And I didn't dismiss their proposals. Their proposals came, I believe, a week ago officially. In fact, I first read of some of the proposals in the newspaper and heard it on the radio before it was presented to the government.
Minister Sinclair is confident that the National Insurance Scheme is well equipped to handle the benefits that are due to the 3,000 workers who are set to go home between now and March 1st. He says, however, it is unlikely that government will extend beyond the current 6 months the unemployment benefits that can be collected. And just to let you know that full press conference will be aired on CBC TV 8 tonight at 9:02 p.m. The National Union of Public Workers is sounding a warning that it will not stand idly by and allow public sector workers' rights to be trampled. It's coming from President Walter Maloney, who was addressing a press conference at the union's headquarters.
If people in this country believe that this is some sleeping behemoth, I want you to tell them no. The tail has been pulled, and if they thought that we were in slumber, we are not in slumber. We are not going to sit idly by and see the rights of persons trampled. We are not going to allow it to happen.
Meanwhile, General Secretary Dennis Clark has blasted the retrenchment process so far used by government, describing it as ridiculous. He says the union has received additional reports of termination of temporary workers from different government departments since the laying off of drainage workers.
Right now, there are other workers in the public service who have had their temporary appointment terminated. It's not drainage alone, but they have not come in the numbers from a specific department, but you're getting them coming through drips and drabs, and it is all because they're arguing that there's no money to pay them, that the letter that they would have had, their letter of temporary appointment, came to an end on the 31st. And I believe the state is being set so ridiculously that they have even backdated terminating some of those workers.
People who lose their jobs during government layoffs need to be aware that they could be prey for drug lords, and this will cause problems in society. This advice from Attorney General and Minister of Home Affairs Adriel Brathwaite.
The last thing that we want is for drug lords, etc., to make further inroads into our society. So it's not just a governmental response. I think it has to be a societal response. The school, the church, the police, all of us. And that's why I make the point about, let me answer this question, it's more of it has to be across the political divide in terms of how we intervene.
Minister Brathwaite says Barbadians need to be open to offering and receiving help.
We all know that Bajans, sometimes pride stands in the way of persons stepping forward and asking for assistance. Reach out to those neighbors, reach out to any of your friends who you believe that are having issues, because that is our responsibility as our brothers keepers.
The National Committee for the Prevention of Alcoholism and Drug Dependency wants government to say no to legalizing marijuana at all costs. President Pastor Victor Roach was speaking at a service at the Church of the Latter-day Saints to mark the start of Drug Awareness Month.
With the legalization of marijuana in Washington and Colorado, NCPAD wishes to make it abundantly clear that at this time or no other time will we be sanctioning marijuana as a legal drug. All in favor again say aye. And I heard the minister saying they will have to sit down first. I don't care whether they sit down or stand up. It is no to marijuana.
The NCPAD president also wants government to raise the relevant age limit, which will make it more difficult for young people to buy alcohol.
Increase the purchase age of alcohol, which allows children 16 and over to buy alcohol so long as they are not intending to use it on the premises. That is a loophole that every brilliant child can exploit and contribute to the problems we have in our society.
Mr. Roach also says a drug treatment court and the introduction of breathalyzer testing in Barbados are long overdue. His comment follows yesterday's announcement by the Attorney General that the court will be set up in Barbados in a few weeks. Well, at the same service, a senior health official called for an urgent response to help save and protect the youth in Barbados from a life of illegal drugs. Senior Medical Officer in the Ministry of Health, Dr. Kenneth George, wants special programs designed especially for young males to help address drug dependency and other related issues.
Our approach to the problem needs to be multifaceted and intersectoral, using all of society's solutions that embrace the private sector, civil society, and government. In addition, I ask that programs be designed specifically to target young males, especially those in the low-income areas, that bring real-time solutions to individuals that are enticed by drugs and other forms of illicit activity.
And MISA, the Men's Educational and Support Association, thinks parenting is an issue that must be dealt with to address drug abuse among the island's youth. So says its chairman, Ralph Boyce.
In terms of the drug abuse, we have cases when I was in education some years ago of parents introducing the children to the drugs. In some cases, fathers teaching daughters how to use cocaine. So that's where we need to begin. And as I keep talking to people, it seems to me that the parenting, I don't have all this written down, but as I said, you're guided by the Spirit. Parenting to me is one of the key things in this country.
The domestic violence and abuse hotlines are open as there is anticipation that the economic change will cause discomfort and social unrest in society. The Crisis Center Coordinator, Marlene Hewitt, is reassuring victims that there is help to cope with this economic change.
We would want them to always remember that the Crisis Center, the BPW Crisis Center, is there. There is a hotline. It is 365 days, 24 hours, 435-8222. They can always call the hotline and a counselor will be on. In maybe emergency situation, even if a counselor is not on, someone will answer and then we'll call the counselor so that that person can be helped.
The stress of layoffs can also affect children whose parents may be in an abusive relationship. Ms. Hewitt says that children can feel free to call the hotline.
Children are very sensitive and they know what's happening in a family. So you may have to protect your children. If it's just as a result of the stress, not necessarily domestic violence, you may have to take time out and spend time with the children. If they're old enough, explain to them what's happening and what they would need to do to get over that circumstances. If it is in terms of domestic violence, you have to recognize that it will affect the children. A lot of boys go on to become perpetrators if they're in that type of household. Some of them don't, but quite a few do. And the girls seem to think that that's what life is about. So they accept it in their relationships when they get older. You don't want that to happen to your children.
A local entertainer is concerned about the economic situation in Barbados and the huge impact it will have on promoters staging shows this year. Promoter and entertainer Tony Commander Grisette says the situation is tough and brings into question whether his annual Back in Time Spooge concert will come off as usual. Mr. Grisette tells CBC News sponsors are critical to his show taking place, and at present securing those are somewhat of a challenge. He, however, remains cautiously optimistic as, according to him, Barbadians by nature are a giving people.
Right now, I'm contemplating, as you say, about the recession because, as you know, my show always in February, and I don't know if I'm going to have it this year because sponsors, I'm not getting the sponsors. But I will try, I'll still try. I don't want to give up.
Barbados has recorded a significant drop in the number of road fatalities over the last year. This revelation from Public Relations Officer of the Barbados Road Safety Association, Richard Cox. He's attributing this to the fact that Barbadians now appear to be embracing the road safety messages being disseminated by his organization, and he's commending road users for that. Mr. Cox, however, notes that he would like to see that total reduce even further to about 10 if possible for the upcoming 2013 to 2014 period.
Last year, 2012, there were 28 fatalities, a record. Last year, 2013, we had 19 persons killed, a difference of 9. And we want to thank every man, woman, and child using the roads for helping us to obtain this, because the Barbados Road Safety Association cannot do it alone. The police cannot do it alone. So we want to thank the traveling public.
An old laundromat in the Free Hill, Blackrock, St. Michael area has been destroyed by fire. But fire officials were able to prevent the blaze from spreading to nearby homes in the densely populated area. Firefighters responded to the call at about 4:15 this morning with 2 tenders and 8 officers under the command of Divisional Officer Lloydson Phillips and Acting Station Officer Denton Foster. The derelict structure is reportedly owned by Trevor Reese of Lodge Terrace, St. Michael, and has been unoccupied for about 7 years. Meantime, the fire service also responded to a car fire on Hinks Street in the city around 28 minutes past 8 last night. That vehicle was extensively damaged, but no injuries have been reported. Police are investigating both incidents. Well, the NUPW's Dalkeith headquarters was abuzz with activity over the weekend, but it had nothing to do with the talks about imminent job cuts. This time, it was a retirement function for the former financial controller in the Ministry of Transport and Works, Marcina Springer, who'd given over 45 years in the public service. In a brief address, Minister of Transport and Works, Michael Lashley, described Ms. Springer as a trailblazer and a dedicated employee.
You have set the pace and set the tone at MTW, particularly in your department. And you have left a mark, and you have left a standard that those employees behind you will have to reach.
There's a new international treaty that, if ratified, will make it easier for blind and visually impaired people to study. It's the Treaty of Marrakesh, and President of the Senate, Carrie Ann Eiffel, explains that it addresses the issue of copyright. She says in Spain, for instance, there are over 100,000 books that are in an accessible format, while in Argentina, that number is less than 5,000. Senator Eiffel says those books cannot be legally sent from one country to another.
It leaves those students, it means that you have to get the resources to reproduce those books, which is a waste of resources. If we were able to have those books transmitted across borders, then that would make life a lot simpler. Hence, there was a new treaty came out in July called the Treaty of Marrakesh for the World Intellectual Property Organization, which encourages governments, when ratified, to make materials printed in that country accessible. And if, let's say that Barbados ratifies and Trinidad ratifies, materials produced in either country can be swapped between the two and makes life a lot easier. And the challenge with that is, from personal experience, putting things into Braille takes a long time, and it adds to that time when you have to seek copyright permission.